story with you guys. And kind of crazy, but growing up, I really didn't think I had much of a testimony at all, or at least not a powerful one, because I couldn't really pinpoint just one moment in my life where I was like, yes, that's the day I was saved. And this is because I was really blessed to grow up in a house that served the Lord. And so I got to see what a life lived for Christ looked like through my parents and the example that they set. And yeah, my dad's been a pastor or involved with ministry ever since I can remember. But because of this, I really struggled to believe that my story could reach anybody, or that it was powerful, because on paper there wasn't a radical change from one extreme to the next to prove that the Lord had really captured my heart. But something that my mentor, Caitlin Merrill, really helped me understand and grasp was the fact that God can save also through ordinary means, but it is always an extraordinary miracle when a dead heart is made alive, and that's what happens. That's what he did in my life. And so, yeah, like I said, my dad was a pastor, and I don't know if anyone knows the Rock Church back in San Diego, but that's where I spent a good amount of my childhood. He was the associate under Miles McPherson, and it can hold about 3,000 to 4,000 people, I think. So on average, each Sunday, my life was pretty much on a platform to 6,000 to 8,000 people just physically there, plus all the people watching online. And so that started to really stir up a lot of anxiousness inside of me, because my life was portrayed to so many people that I had no idea even who they were. And I started to feel this immense pressure on my shoulders to live up to the pastor's kid's title in the standard. I so greatly feared messing up, and I really let people's expectations of my behavior start to control me and govern my life. And so it might seem pretty subtle and small, but there's something key here that I want to point out, and it's that the approval of others meant more to me than the approval of God. And there's a verse that talks just about this idea, and it's in Galatians 1:10, and it reads, "For am I now seeking the approval of man or of God? Or am I trying to please man? If I were still trying to please man, I would not be a servant of Christ." And so kind of a brutal reality for me when I realized that. I don't know about you guys, but if you've ever spent your life or a season of your life chasing after the approval of man and seeking your satisfaction from other people, it's exhausting, it's lifeless, it's gonna leave you empty, and it's gonna leave you void at the end of the day. So because of this, I started to develop a tendency of relying on myself and my own strength to fix myself up, and I really thought that I had to have it all together on my own, because I had to fit this standard, this expectation of a perfect child, a pastor's kid. So as a result, I became so numb to the gospel, because people were my source of satisfaction, and I wasn't making God the one who filled me up. So I became super impartial and indifferent to Christ's suffering, and I became numb to the fact that he bore my sin and death on that cross. And so Keith said something yesterday at a Providence huddle, and he'll be speaking later, but he said that there was a point in his life when he was feasting on the faithfulness of man and not on the faithfulness of God. And this is exactly what was consuming my life. And so for a little bit, it kind of worked out. I got the praise of so many people in church. I got the reputation of the perfect child, the one that never messed up, and the easiest kid that my parents had out of all of us four. Sorry, Kayla. Yeah, and so it kind of worked for a little bit. But I developed this really dangerous tendency to only cry out to God when things got tough, and when my strength failed me, and I forgot him and how he had displayed his goodness in my life when things were okay enough on my own. And so this pattern really continued throughout my life without me really realizing it until about my senior year of high school, when my world came crashing down a bit. And so a few days into 2020, I received a text message informing me that one of my friends and my classmates, he died in a car accident. And so I tried to distract myself to not feel any pain. And soccer became more important to me than it ever had been before, because it was my escape from reality. And also at the same time, my grandma was super sick, and the next month she passed away, and so I lost her. And the next month, COVID hit, so I was really stuck, and I couldn't ignore the pain that I was going through and the grief that I was enduring anymore. And so I cried out to the Lord, and he met me there. But again, the same thing happened. After some time, I found myself forgetting his goodness, because the goodness in my own life on my own was sufficient enough for me, and things were going all right again. So I go off to college. I somehow get a spot on the Westmont women's soccer team, and things are going all right again. But one day at practice during my sophomore year, I took a simple misstep and heard the infamous crack in my knee. And it was confirmed that I had torn my ACL and meniscus on my right knee. So as a lot of you know, probably out there, that ACLs tears are the longest recovery time for injuries in sports, and oftentimes they will take up to 12 months. People can get back sooner, but that's kind of the projected return rate that you're facing. So again, I found myself crying out to the Lord. I was so physically beat down and broken. My own strength failed me again, but this time it was kind of displayed more tangible than ever. One of my favorite pastors, his name is Chuck Swindoll, and he really hits the nail on the head with this idea when he says that we tend to forget God not when we are in need, but when we think we have no need. And so I started to realize the Lord really elucidated this pride in my heart, that I was viewing God as my comfort and my strength, but only when my own flesh failed me. And so instead of knowing that he's my sole source of strength and refuge in whatever season, whether that's good or bad, I only leaned on him and really only let him consume my heart when I couldn't do it myself. And so I let the season I was in and the trials I was facing then determine my need and my desperation for Christ, and the hope that we have in the gospel. And a passage of scripture that became really encouraging to me during this time is found in Philippians 4:11 through 13, and it says, "Not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am in to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me." I think there's this misconception about this verse a lot of times, that we take that last part, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and we forget that it's really saying like we can endure all things in any season, in any situation. So it's not actually about us doing our thing and God kind of just on the side, like, yeah, Lord, help me do this for you, but like it's really about me. No, it's actually saying that no matter what you're facing, if it's great need or if it's abundance, whatever season, that the Lord is going to get you through it. So fast forward to my junior season, which was last year. I rehabbed really hard, made a comeback in about 10 months post-op. After surgery, I get to play my first game back. Got the famous Preciado 5, I like to say. When my coach would put me in for the last 5 minutes of the game, it was awesome. That was my moment. I was so amped. Had a couple debuts of that, and I was so excited. It was crazy. I couldn't contain myself. I think I probably forgot how to play soccer altogether, just running out there, but I just had the best time. So just a couple games back into it, we had training again, and it felt like deja vu. I took another misstep, heard the exact same crack, but this time on my other knee. So I had torn my other ACL and both meniscus this time. So even though I sobbed right away, because your body just kind of knows those things when it's happened before, I started to remember the difference between happiness and joy. And so happiness is a feeling, which means it's fleeting, it's not going to last. And it's evoked by our situation. It's the feeling we get when we get a good grade, when something's going really well for us, and it becomes really addictive. And it starts to develop an insatiable desire for things and people that satisfy and please us. But joy is a whole lot different. It's actually a heart posture, and it's a response to external circumstances with inner contentment, knowing that whatever situation you're in, you can endure it through Christ. And so Joy is how an individual can endure any season with hope and contentment. And it's Philippians 4:1-13 in action. So no matter if you're a pastor's kid just like me who struggled with this, or maybe you're hearing about Jesus for the first time, or maybe you've heard it a million times and you just don't really know about this whole God thing, or maybe you're somewhere in between. But no matter the case or where you fall on the spectrum, if you're searching for joy and for purpose in anything or anyone else but Jesus, you are in for a life of disappointment, pain, and ultimately death. And I know this is harsh, but it's this bone-piercing truth that a person without Christ is nothing, and a life that is not lived serving him is all in vanity. And so my encouragement with that is found in Psalm 84, verses 10-11, and it reads, "For a day in your courts is better than 1,000 elsewhere. I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than dwell in the tents of wickedness. For the Lord God is a sun and a shield. The Lord bestows favor and honor. No good thing does he withhold from those who walk uprightly. O Lord of hosts, blessed is the one who trusts in you." So my new cry to God is that he would use my ransomed life in any way that he chooses, and that he would rid me of myself because I belong to him. And so this is definitely taking me down a road that I hadn't envisioned for myself, but I know that even my worst days with Jesus by my side beats 1,000 days anywhere else. So yeah, that's a little bit about my story.